Good afternoon. My name is Ash Luna. My partner is Aaron, and today we'll be discussing the Rococo art movement. So some things we'll be talking about is what is Rococo, the history of it, and some artists as well, like Jean Honoré Wagner, Francis Boucher, and other things like how its impact of it, how it's used today, what can we learn from it, and obviously the last slide being our sources. So first of all, what is Rococo? Rococo is an art movement that was in the 18th century. It is mostly used by high-class people, like aristocrats, for example. It was characterized by its asymmetry and dramatic style, along with it being oriental, and it was used in art, architecture, interior design. And by art, I mean things like not just painting, but also sculptures as well. It was used in a variety of things. So the history of it was that it was basically in the late Baroque period, and it took place in the 1700s along to 1770. It originated in Paris, France, and it was popular in Paris and somewhat in Germany and Austria later on. So the first art piece that we will be discussing is Psyche showing her sisters her gifts in Cupid. This was created by Jean Honoré Wagner, and it was created in 1753. Its medium is oil on canvas and is in the Rococo art movement. So Wagner was 21 years old and in school at the time of the painting's creation, so he was pretty young when he made this piece. Now, this painting in particular, is based off a Greek mythology story. Greek or Roman mythology, either or, most of those Greek and Roman mythology stories are usually the same thing, just with some differences. So the basic premise of it is that there was a beautiful woman. Her name was Psyche, and she was extremely beautiful. Some mortals thought she was more beautiful than Aphrodite and started worshipping her instead. And the thing about Aphrodite is that she does not like other people being seen as more beautiful than her. So, because she was angry, she hurt the kingdom, casting plagues and everything, and basically told the king, I want you to sacrifice her. Otherwise, this is going to keep going, and I'm only going to stop it if you sacrifice her. So the king agreed, and what he did was he tied her up and he threw her outside where some monster, which he thought was going to happen, would take her and kill her. But there was no monster, and instead it was Cupid, or Eros, and that is Aphrodite's son. So what he did was he took her to his secret castle, and they basically became a couple. They fell in love. They were a bit happily in love too. He gave her gifts. He gave her a wonderful life. Everything was beautiful and perfect. But there were a couple strange things with the relationship. First of all, she did not know that he was a god. And second of all, he only came to visit her at nighttime. And third, he would never let her see his face, so she never knew what he looked like face-wise. So, other than that though, they were both very happy together. One day, her sisters came to visit her, and she was showing off her gifts that she was received, and her sisters got very jealous of this, because her sister was getting treated amazing, and they couldn't have that, so that's what they got upset about. So what they did was they decided to pry into her insecurities and get in between the relationship by telling her that, taking control of those insecurities and telling her that your husband is an ugly monster. This ended up working though, because one night when Cupid was sleeping, she went into his room with a candle and tried to get a peek at him. And she did end up getting a peek of him. But she realized, she saw his beauty and how beautiful he was, and that's when it clicked for her that he is a god. He is Cupid or Eros. So when she was looking at him in awe because of his beauty, she dropped some of the hot candle wax on him, which woke him up, and he realized what she had done. She broke one of his rules. So when he was upset, he left her. And she was heartbroken by this. So she went to Aphrodite and she begged her, hey, can you help me see him again. I'm so sorry about what happened. I want to see him again because I love him. And Aphrodite agreed, but she gave a condition. You need to complete a bunch of quests and tasks in order for you to do this and see him again. So Psyche did so. Over time, she got all those tasks done, even with the help of some other gods, and she eventually completed them all. And so then, Aphrodite let her see Eros again, and they two got reunited. Zeus saw this though, and saw how loving and devoted she was to Eros, so she made her immortal, and then they lived happily ever after together. That is the story behind this painting. Now, as mentioned in the story, her sisters do come over to visit her, and this is exactly the scene that happens in this painting. So, for the emphasis, and looking at the elements and principles of design, the emphasis of it is Psyche. How do we know which one is Psyche, you may ask? Well, it's simple. Look at every single one of the characters in this painting. And then look at this lady right here. She is the most clear-looking one out of all of them in there. So it looks like the focus is on her. And not only that, but she's the only one wearing white too. And she's also sitting down as well on what seems to be in a nice comfy couch and cushion. She's getting people to do her hair, take care of her, be by her side, everything. This leads the viewer to realize and think that this is Psyche. And from what we can look at, the people and the beings around, like this one right here by her side doing her hair, these are all the nymphs that help take care of her. And these other ladies over here are her sisters because they are looking at something. And based off what they're holding, we can assume this is fabric. And that fabrics that were typically gifted to her. They seem to be looking like impressed and interested in it as well, and this kind of shows why they eventually get jealous. There is a lot of variety between the colors and textures if you look at this. For example, look at the textures of the clothing. We could tell this is clothing just by the texture of it. The wrinkles of it looks so light and flowy, and along with it's like comfy and smooth as well. There's this texture for the seat. This looks very much like a cushion, something you'd put your feet on or lay against. We can see like the smoothness of the floor on the rug. And this looks like something heavy. A fabric that is heavy, kind of thick, but still soft. We can tell where this location is, and it just takes place based off the story. With our ability, we can tell this takes place in Rome or Greece. But we can also tell more specifically where this is because look at this clouds up here. The clouds and the lighting right here, along with the building and how it's structured, and the mythical beings right here floating around her. This makes it seem like heavenly, which shows she is probably somewhere on Olympus, somewhere where God would live. Looking at this painting, we can also see the light coming from the side here, and it shines on Psyche a lot. It puts her in the spotlight. Another interesting thing about it, though, is because it comes from the side, it kind of leads our eyes to move along the painting, so it leads to her as well. The colors are all pretty soft. The most bold thing in this painting at all really is this woman's clothing, and maybe this part, which by the value and shading of it kind of goes darker, which gets rid of the boldness a little bit. But all the colors are very light in this painting. They don't look too saturated or too bold. So looking at the painting, we can tell that by the lighting, it takes place somewhere on Olympus, heavenly. The clothing, the way she's being treated, all this can show that she is the one that is being in control, basically, and is pampered, and is the one that's rich and living in luxury as well. That's what we can tell based off this. The painting is trying to tell us who Psyche is by all of us. The second painting we're going to be talking about is The Birth and Triumph of Venus. This was made by Francis Boucher in 1740, and it's oil on canvas as its medium. This is based also in the Rococo art movement, as obviously shown by This Is Our Project, and it is based off a mythology story as well. In particular, this one is with Venus and Aphrodite's creation, because she was born from the sea. So if we look at the painting, we can see that there is a lot of cool colors. The green in the trees, the blue in the skies, the turquoise, which is a mixture of blue and green on the sea, as the sea. Even some colors, like it looks like clothing on right here on the lady, which is also blue. And it's not very saturated. They're kind of lighter a little bit. They're not super bright and bold. We can tell who the emphasis is on based off the picture and seeing who it is. As we can see, here in the middle, out of all the people and the nymphs and the tritons in this picture, the person with the most light on them and is the brightest, and also in the center of it all, is this woman right here. And this woman is most obviously Aphrodite. Now, looking at the other principles and pieces of design, we also have more weight on the bottom half of it, which we can say it's a bit asymmetrical since there's more weight on the bottom half than the top half. Because lots of different textures as well. The rocks over here, they look and give like a hard, stony feeling. The fabric right here really feels like light and airy, especially since it's being blown and carried by the other mythical creatures in the wind. The way we look at the water in this picture really gives that liquidy feel. It's flowy. It's going around smoothly. It doesn't look stiff. Same thing with the cloud. It looks airy. It doesn't feel stiff, which is exactly how it's supposed to. There is a lot more space on the upper half of the picture, in particular around here and here, especially because there's less objects. These objects are what take away most of the space in the picture. We can see movement in the water as it moves towards them and it goes back and goes away from them as it hits them, along with the way the fabric moves. It moves our eyes towards in the direction of where the creatures are flying. Based off the story, we can assume that it takes place in Greece or Rome, particularly most likely Greece, and it obviously takes place in really ancient times, seeing how there's no swimsuits and they're all just nude in the water. Looking at the image though, everything fits together well and feels right. It's all unified. It just fits well together. It feels like a puzzle being put together and it's complete. There's lots of variety too when it comes to the way the characters look as well. We can see obviously she is more pale. There's some with different colored hair, some people with darker skin tones than others. There's a lot of variety on the scenicness too. We can see rocks here, we can see trees and clouds and ocean, and even more rocks in the background too. Now onto the artist itself. Some more about Francis Boucher is that he was born on September 29, 1703, and died on May 30th, 1770. He was 66 years old at the time of his death. He was a painter, engraver, and designer. He was influenced by a few different artists, including Genovese Bastia. Boucher became famous for his mythological paintings and countryside landscapes. Boucher was highly regarded as one of the greatest artists of the 18th century because of his skill in drawing female nudes. However, towards the end of his life, he began to stop being top artist.
Born 1990 in Norwich, England, She's currently still alive, and she's mainly known for her contemporary interpretation on Rococo art. She went to Heatherley School of Fine Art from 2010 to 2013, and Guilds of London Art of School 2016-2017, where she did her master's. And most of her work is inspired by Jean Honore Fragonard, Rococo artist. During an interview with Lydia Figs, she said, "During my master's at the Guilds of London Art School, I stumbled across a book of Jean Honore Fragonard, his works. His paintings made such a strong impression on me, but I couldn't work out exactly why. I began mimicking his palette and working with imagery borrowed from his paintings to try and understand them better. I must have become attuned to the Rococo aesthetic because I began to notice it everywhere around me. In advertising, in shops, cartoons, children's toys, music videos, and so on. I soon realized that most of these things were in some way targeted at women and girls." She believed that this art was more targeted towards women with the fashion and wealth and luxury sense. One of Flora's most famous artworks is her "I'll Have What She's Having," made in 2020, oil on linen, 169.5 by 220 centimeters, 66 inches and a half by 86 and a half inches, which was also inspired by Jean Honore Fragonard. It is basically looks more like a combination of the swing made in 1767. Her artwork has many of the same brushstrokes and kind of more abstract than it would be on an actual Rococo. There's no actual women or people being displayed in her art, but it still kind of mimics the abstract shadows of people, and it still kind of shows the woman on a swing in the middle, but no swing attached. Rococo and its impact and how it's used today. Multiple artists today are and have been influenced by Rococo art movement. Carla Black, sculpture of What to Ask of Others, had ethereal pink cloud, which reminded viewer of the swing. Meredith Vassie specialized in the frame painting similar to ornate scrolling borders. Flora Yuknovich, I also think there is something quite Rococo about our celebrity culture and the aspirational pleasure we take in watching the glamorous lives of the super rich on reality TV. That is a quote from Flora. She basically describes how people are today. People today are always watching reality TV of these stars, these celebrities, of their glamorous lives, their rich lives, living in luxury. Also goes with Instagram and perhaps Facebook and all these other social media type based, where people are much rather looking at other people's glamorous and luxurious lives and liking and believing in a world that is better than theirs sometimes, or that they wish is theirs. And also queer people, especially females, are trying to reclaim this art. This was said in The Return of Rococo in Contemporary Culture. It is an article by Daniel Thom. He says, perhaps it is the conscious artificiality of Rococo that makes it so opposite for the present moment, a firmly tongue-in-cheek aesthetic that offers us a way to navigate our desire for pleasure in a painful world. So the return of pleasure, of these luxury-looking paintings for these dark or whatever present times that he is explaining for the reason why it could be returning. Rococo art movement. Rococo art was first given off as fundamentally feminine and effeminate. The art is being brought back mainly by queer women, kind of as a fight back at the norms of the art. They're fighting back due to its main movement when it began, which started off as men portraying feminine women in the norms of the fashion and the norms of that being brought back. One of today's works by Yearwood Dans is a joyous confection of the curve and color that incorporates lush, natural motives to underscore the naturalness of queer desire, said in Daniel Thom's article. During its peak, it was a look into luxurious and wealthy lives. It still lives in today's society. The genre painting showed their bold and joyous lust for life, as said in the art story Rococo movement overview. This art movement still lives in today by how we portray the luxury life and how we look at TV shows and other. It still lives in today through TV shows, social media, and through everywhere we look, TV shows, TV ads. We're portraying a better life than what some people could have.